I mean, the Dow was down 3,200 points this week. These are steep losses.
Data releases each day are underscoring the economic havoc wreaked on Britain and the world economy by the coronavirus lockdown. Businesses have shut, millions of workers have lost their jobs and had their wages cut, and savers and pensioners have watched their money diminish as stock markets tanked. Central banks responded by printing money and cutting interest rates to record lows.
The longer the lockdown goes on, the more chance there is of lasting damage to the economy, what economists call a scarring. And this is because quite a lot of businesses will become insolvent.
Car rental company Hertz declared bankruptcy, and your favorite childhood restaurant, Chuck E. Cheese, also went under. And economists say this is only the tip of the iceberg. Despite billions of dollars spent in government support and loans, legal scholars worry that bankruptcy courts will soon be overloaded, resulting in delays as many cash-strapped business owners will be forced to shut down permanently. There have been over 26,160 total restaurant closures, an increase of 2,179 since June 15th. That's according to data from Yelp. About 60% are permanently closed, with bars being especially hit hard. The retail industry also endured 26,119 total business closures, of which 48% were permanent. Beauty and spas, bars and nightlife, and fitness centers are also suffering the blow.
The airline industry has taken a major hit during this pandemic.
4 months into the global pandemic, the coronavirus has the nation's major airlines bleeding cash. Just a couple of months ago, airlines saw passenger levels drop off a cliff, down 95%.
As long as we see COVID-19 continue to spread around the country and we don't see a break in the infection levels, we're going to see real limited numbers in terms of people taking flights.
United Airlines now says it's losing $25 million a day. Delta says its daily cash burn rate hit $27 million a day in late June, down from $100 million a day in March.
The Lord took me into a hospital. There's a very big distress there. You see a lot of people swarming into the hospital. I see the lack of equipment. Now there's no equipment. The doctors are running up and down. Well, he makes one of the doctors there to speak with me, and he says, "We don't have equipment."
Where are the ventilators? Where are the gowns? Where's the PPEs? Where are the masks? Where are they? What am I going to do with 400 ventilators when I need 30,000? You pick the 26,000 people who are going to die because you only sent 400 ventilators.
This is Janet Shamlian in Houston, where a dire situation is unfolding. A surge of COVID patients has some hospitals here scrambling to find beds in other Texas cities. New infections in Texas soared to an all-time high of 8,076 cases today. More than 6,900 are hospitalized with the virus.
The numbers speak for themselves. I'm very concerned, and I'm not satisfied with what's going on because we're going in the wrong direction.
The World Health Organization is warning of a global shortage of coronavirus protective equipment, including masks and respirators that health workers use when treating infectious patients.
In California, there's a dwindling supply of protective equipment.
They're not protecting us. They're not saving our lives.
This California nurse says she's wearing donated gear and has to wipe down her gown between patients.
Medical staff have released video clips of each other cutting up plastic rubbish bags to use as protective clothing. As many as 15,000 of their colleagues are too ill to work or are self-isolating.
The Lord took me into a hospital. There's a very big distress there. You see a lot of people swarming into the hospital. I see the lack of equipment. Now there's no equipment. The doctors are running up and down. Well, he makes one of the doctors there to speak with me, and he says, We don't have equipment.
6 of the nation's largest medical distributors warned raw material for PPE is now in a really bad position worldwide. Material for gowns is unavailable at any price, and continuing to supply protective equipment is not sustainable. Supply shortages in Sacramento forced 5 COVID testing sites to close.
World powers that are armed for the globe's biggest wars are now fighting for basic protective gear. France is reported to have seized masks meant to be shipped to Spain and Italy. And the U.S. is accused of diverting gear intended for the German police. An estimated 3.5 billion masks are needed by the American healthcare system to fight this outbreak, and there are not enough. And frontline workers risk being infected as doctors and patients are asked to reuse what they have.
Now, due to sudden jumps in numbers, states are facing an impending shortage of intensive care unit hospital beds.
Healthcare workers around the world are asking for help. They're in desperate need of more PPE, also known as personal protective equipment. Stocks of the critical gear are disappearing during the coronavirus pandemic. Doctors say they are rationing gloves, reusing masks, and raiding hardware stores.
Long lines for life's most vital element. Oxygen is in short supply for COVID-19 patients who are struggling to breathe.
Tonight, Arizona is down to the lowest number of available ICU beds since the crisis began. And in California, where infections are surging, medical workers are sounding the alarm about a shortage of protective equipment.
There will be a disease emergency. The stress of disease is coming. There will be a disease emergency.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. We begin with news about the new coronavirus outbreak. The World Health Organization has now declared it an international public health emergency.
I'm declaring a public health emergency of international concern.
I am officially declaring a national emergency.
All 54 states, territories, and the District of Columbia have declared a state of emergency.
The novel coronavirus outbreak is a public health emergency of international concern.
The Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez has declared Saturday a state of emergency for the next 15 days.
Of the 3 tiers in relation to the response level, alert, serious and emergency, the level had been raised to serious. Now, today, I'd like to announce that we are going to escalate it to the highest level, that is emergency.
The Italian government declared a state of emergency.
In neighboring France, a state of health emergency has been declared in the last 24 hours.
Switzerland's Federal Council has declared a state of emergency until the 19th of April.
Mexico's deputy health minister declared a national public health emergency.
There will be a disease emergency. The stress of disease is coming. There will be a disease emergency.
Declaring a state of public health emergency throughout the Philippines.
Declaring a state of public emergency throughout the Gambia.
Ethiopia has declared a state of emergency in response to the coronavirus pandemic.
I, Julius Maada Bio, President of the Republic of Sierra Leone, declare that a state of public emergency exists in the whole of the Republic of Sierra Leone.
I have today declared that the coronavirus presents a public health emergency in the United States.
A public health emergency.
A declaration of emergency.
State of emergency.
And to declare a state of emergency for our state.
Advance a proclamation of a state of emergency in the state of California.
I have officially done a declaration of emergency.
Today I'm declaring a state of emergency in Massachusetts.
That it is necessary to declare a state of public emergency.
I have signed and issuing a declaration of emergency.
Well, he makes one of the doctors there to speak with me, and he says, "We don't have equipment. What we do, we take this, and they take a little and put on the culture. We don't have equipment. What we do, we take this, and they take a little and put on the culture."
scientists racing to find a vaccine.
So the minute we made the diagnosis of the first case in Australia, we knew how significant that was, and we knew that we wanted to culture the virus.
So what we're looking at are cells which have been grown in culture.
Biology will attempt to grow novel coronavirus in human cell lines, which will enable in vitro testing of potential drugs and vaccines against COVID-19. The research team will use iStem's human lung epithelial cell culture system, provided as part of its anti-COVID screening platform, to understand the molecular and pathological characteristics of the virus, with a view of establishing a rational basis to test potential drugs in vitro.
Well, he makes one of the doctors there to speak with me, and he says, "We don't have equipment. What we do, we take this, and they will take a little and put in the culture. We don't have equipment. What we do, we take this, and they will take a little and put in the culture."
The Lord Jehovah Elohim, the creator of all the universe, the creator of heaven and earth, the creator of all man, every man you see walking around here, around on the earth here, he created. He spoke with me about the glorious coming of the Messiah and the current ongoing situation on the earth, the wrath of God, the judgment of God that I spoke December 1, the year 2015, the prophecy that brought the coronavirus, the most unbearable moment that this generation has encountered. And so the Lord says that this judgment will continue. This judgment of the Lord will continue. And so the coronavirus is still going to ravage and devastate this generation. I have seen the coronavirus gets worse. So the Lord is crying out to this generation. He's really pleading with this generation. Prepare the way. Repent. The Messiah is coming.
This is an NBC News special report. Here's Lester Holt.
Now to another grim milestone. The world surpassing 1 million deaths from the coronavirus.
This is what COVID has done to us. Pocketing our lands and fields with mass graves. From Sao Paulo, Brazil, to deep in the Amazon, to even, just a few months ago, the Empire City, New York. The confirmed COVID-19 death toll has now surpassed 1 million, according to the Johns Hopkins count. And that, health officials caution, is likely an undercount, since many countries keep poor records and test little. COVID has been 2020's world war, but unlike on the battlefield, many of its victims died alone, surrounded by plastic.
The number of people worldwide who've died from coronavirus-related deaths has topped 1 million. And even with that figure, the true number of cases is likely to be higher still because of the number of cases that go undetected. These are the latest figures from the Johns Hopkins University tracker. You can see that figure's already soared beyond the 1 million mark within the past couple of hours. The number of recorded infections is now more than 33 million. The US, Brazil and India make up more than 50% of those cases, and those three countries also account for nearly half of all global deaths.
Our world has reached an agonizing milestone, the loss of 1 million lives from the COVID-19 pandemic. It's a mind-numbing figure. Yet we must never lose sight of each and every individual life. They were fathers and mothers, wives and husbands, brothers and sisters, friends and colleagues. The pain has been multiplied by the savageness of this disease.
The world passed a grim milestone on Tuesday of more than 1 million people who have died from the novel coronavirus since the first reported case in China in January. More than 33 million people have been infected by COVID-19 across more than 210 countries and territories, according to a Reuters tally. Deaths from coronavirus-related illnesses have doubled from 500,000 in just 3 months, led by fatalities in the United States, Brazil and India. Those countries account for nearly half of all COVID-19 deaths globally, with the Latin American region alone responsible for more than a third of them. More than 5,400 people are dying around the world every 24 hours, according to a Reuters calculation. In the time it takes to watch a 90-minute soccer match, 340 people die on average. India is the latest epicenter of the pandemic globally. The high number of deaths has also led to changes in burial rites around the world, with morgues and funeral homes overwhelmed. From Bolivia to Indonesia, authorities and volunteers have had to work overtime to dig new graves and locate new burial sites.
Cases of the novel coronavirus in the United States topped 6 million on Sunday, as many states in the Midwest reported increasing infections, according to a Reuters tally. Iowa, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Minnesota have recently reported record one-day increases in new cases, while Montana and Idaho are seeing record numbers of currently hospitalized COVID-19 patients.
Today, 16th of September 2020, is the day of history.
Leo hii tarehe 16 Septemba mwaka 2020 ni siku ya kihistoria.
As I was asleep in the night,
Nilipokuwa nimelala usiku,
then all of a sudden I saw the visions of the Lord.
kisha ghafla bunbu nikayaona maono ya Bwana.
And then I saw from afar
Halafu nikaona kutoka mbali
the Lord Most High flying very far, too high,
Bwana aliye juu sana akipaa sana juu
like an eagle.
kama tai.
And then after that,
Halafu baada ya
he
hiyo
spoke to me about the judgment of the USA, the United States of America.
akazungumza pamoja nami kuhusu hukumu ya Marekani, majimbo ya umoja Marekani.
Then in that dream,
Halafu katika ndoto hiyo
I saw that the USA was judged.
niliona ya kwamba Marekani ilihukumiwa
The White House.
kule White House.
I saw the great eagle. He struck the White House in the USA.
with me about the judgment of God
halafu akazungumza pamoja nami kuhusu hukumu ya Mungu
that is coming to the USA, United States of America.
ambayo inakuja Marekani kwa majimbo ya Umoja Marekani.
Then I pronounced it.
Halafu nikaitangaza.
Then all of a sudden I saw he struck America.
Halafu ghafla bin vu nikamwona akagonga Marekani.
And the White House was affected.
Na ikulu ya White House likaathirika.
I have warned the United States of America.
Nimeonya majimbo ya Umoja Marekani.
The Lord has instructed me to strike you with the wrath of God.
Bwana ameniagiza ni wagonge na ghadhabu ya Mungu.
Repent.
Tubuni.
This is an ABC News special report.
Breaking news. The President and First Lady have tested positive for the coronavirus. This coming after one of the President's closest advisors tested positive.
There is a level of panic inside the White House and, frankly, right now across the country. The concern now is going to be tracking down who else has been in close contact with the president that will need to be quarantined. That could range from the White House press secretary to his Secret Service detail to other senior advisors. Remember, he was just on the stage with Joe Biden at that debate. We know that everyone who comes in close contact with the president is tested for COVID-19, but the reality here is that has not stopped the virus from entering the White House complex, which is one of the most secure buildings in this country.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Stunning news. The President of the United States now confirming to the world that he and the First Lady of the United States have both tested positive for the coronavirus, and they will quarantine. The president tweeting out just moments ago here in the United States, 12:54 a.m., said tonight that Flotus and I tested positive for COVID-19. We will begin our quarantine and recovery process immediately. We will get through this together. Again, the President of the United States confirming via Twitter that he is now tested positive for COVID-19, and the First Lady as well. We have been on the air this evening here on CNN since about 9:45, reporting about the president. The president confirming the news that was first reported by Bloomberg Network, that the president of the United States had come in contact with Hope Hicks. Hope Hicks, who is his one of his top aides, closest aides, testing positive for coronavirus. After she tested positive, the president and the First Lady got their tests, and they were awaiting it. The president gave an interview to Fox News tonight explaining that to Fox News viewers that he was awaiting test results, he and the First Lady, and that they would quarantine.
This is an NBC News special report.
The President of the United States and the First Lady have both tested positive for the coronavirus. Tonight, Flotus and I, First Lady of the United States, and I tested positive for COVID-19. We will begin our quarantine and recovery process immediately. We will get through this together. The president's age, of course, puts him in one of those high-risk groups.
This is a Fox News alert. I'm Ashley Strohmeyer live from New York. President Trump just tweeted moments ago that he and the First Lady have tested positive for the coronavirus. It follows news that top aide Hope Hicks, who traveled with the president multiple times this week, had tested positive. This includes aboard Marine One, the presidential helicopter, and on Air Force One to a rally in Minnesota Wednesday, and then aboard Air Force One to Tuesday night's first presidential debate in Cleveland. Hicks is said to be quarantining at home and is reportedly experiencing symptoms. Multiple White House staffers have tested positive for the virus in the past. This includes Katie Miller, Vice President Mike Pence's press secretary, the National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien, and one of the president's personal valets.
Donald Trump has said he and his wife Melania have coronavirus and have begun a period of quarantine. They were both tested after one of Mr. Trump's most senior advisors, Hope Hicks, found out that she had the virus. The White House doctor has said both the president and the First Lady are well and that Mr. Trump will continue to carry out his duties while he self-isolates. President Trump confirmed the news on Twitter, saying that he and the First Lady will begin our quarantine and recovery process immediately and that they will get through this together.
And welcome. Lots going on tonight. That breaking news. President Trump has tested positive for coronavirus. He tweeted just about 6 minutes ago the following. I'll read you directly. Tonight, FLOTUS, the First Lady, and I tested positive for COVID-19. We will begin our quarantine and recovery process immediately. We will get through this together. Again, President Trump and the First Lady testing positive. This comes after one of his close advisors tested positive for COVID-19.
That's right. Hope Hicks serves as counselor to President Trump and spent time near him this week, including aboard Air Force One. In a Fox News interview earlier tonight, President Trump said that he and the First Lady were being tested. And so far, Hicks is the closest aide to President Trump to test positive for COVID-19.
Huge breaking news this morning. The President of the United States and his wife, Melania Trump, have tested positive for COVID-19.
U.S. President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump have tested positive for COVID-19. The president made the announcement on Twitter shortly after the news that his top aide, Hope Hicks, had contracted the virus. Hicks traveled with the president several times this week. Trump tweeted that he and his wife would quarantine immediately.
The Lord has come out with a storm to strike the earth for their iniquity, for their sin, for their blackmail, for their blasphemy, abomination, immorality, hallelujah, hallelujah, kutawaka on that day.
Katika siku hiyo.
They see difficult days ahead of you.
Naona siku zenye utata mwingi mbele zenu.
Come out.
Bwana ametoka
with a storm
akiwa na dhoruba
to strike the earth
kuigonga dunia
for their iniquity,
kwa ajili ya udhalimu wao,
for their sin,
kwa ajili ya dhambi yao,
for their blackmail,
kwa ajili ya
for their blasphemy,
kwa ajili ya makufuru yao,
abomination, immorality,
usherati,
hallelujah,
hallelujah,
kutawaka on that day.
Katika siku hiyo.
They see difficult days ahead of you.
Naona siku zenye utata mwingi mbele zenu.
The cloud of God is coming from heaven to visit the earth. So this appertains to New Zealand, the United States of America, Europe, everywhere. It's coming to earth. The cloud of God is coming. The cloud of God is coming. Europe, Finland, Spain, United States, South America, Concepcion, Chile, all the way to Brisbane, Canberra, to Gisborne, New Zealand, the end of the earth, South Korea, Incheon, Boryong, Busan, Beijing, Shanghai, Fushan. The Lord is coming to town. And yet the Lord is so patient. He gives you time, blessed people, between the announcement today and then, that you may not be afflicted by his coming.